Hi everyone, my name is Greg McDonough. I'm going to be talking about blood flow restriction training today in comparison to traditional resistance training without hindering blood flow to the muscles. This is my KIN473 critical assignment. If I can get PowerPoint to work. There we go. Alright, so the background on it. Blood flow, blood flow restriction training is pretty much just the occlusion of blood flow via a strap, almost a tourniquet looking system. Some people can use arm cuffs, like in the clinical setting, they might use arm cuffs to make sure they get the pressure correctly. The idea is that it reduces the flow of blood to the desired muscular system. And I really think this is very interesting because there's some really strong scientific background to this type of training. But really, when you see it, is folks in the gym just trying to get a huge pump or you know a little less officially use it. But it does in fact have some background to it. Um, so I use the heading there because that's pretty much what people ask me about it. Is I saw this really huge dude doing it at Gold's Gym, but it just kind of looks like a bodybuilding type meathead thing. That is not correct. It's I don't know if you call it CIU speculation or gym speculation or bro science to it, but the reasoning is sound. And the reason I think it's so beneficial is that you're talking about lifts that you would usually lift somewhere between 75 to 93% of your one rep maximum. Now you can get a similar to same result off of a set using 20% of your one rep maximum. So I don't know how this hasn't blown up in general. I think it's still just kind of scary for people to use words like blood flow restriction. It's actually known as occlusion training in most circles. But it doesn't require extreme resistance of circulation or restriction of circulation. Typically, you're talking about 110 to 120 millimeters mercury. If you've ever taken anyone's blood pressure, you know that that's about 180 millimeters mercury, give or take, depending on size or how hypertensive the person might or might not be. So it's really not a huge deal. It's just a little bit of, a little bit of tingling. You can definitely feel it when you're lifting that way, but it's really not that much restriction. And I think with further research, we could, verify the validity of this training in multiple populations, but we'll get into it. So, for my research, pretty much what I did, it's changed a little bit, but not a lot, is pretty much what are the effects of occlusion, in this case, blood flow restriction training. If you're going to research it, it's better to search for blood flow restriction in the scientific community versus resistance training, which is normal circulation, pardon the space missing there, on muscular strength. I wanted to focus on strength specifically here. These results do go hand in hand with muscular hypertrophy as well. Right now we're focusing on strength. So the hypothesis that, pretty much doesn't change anything is that there's no difference in the increase of muscular strength between training protocols for what we're talking about here. And then my hypothesis, the one that I'm hoping for, what I want to be true, is that blood flow restriction resistance training will result in greater increase in strength than resistance training with normal blood circulation. And of course, our dependent variables are muscular strength increase. I said hypertrophy could be tagged on here, but we're going to focus on muscular strength increase. And the independent variable, of course, is the training type, which is blood flow restriction training, normal circulation. And it turns out some research has been done mixing normal circulation with blood flow restriction training. Methods. So this gets deep, but we're going to power through it. So for my paper, I wanted to go off of 40 people total. That's 20 male and 20 female, all between the ages of 21 to 25 years of age. The occlusion training, or blood flow restriction training, there's going to be 5 male and 5 female. Only do the BFR. 5 male, 5 female. Do regular normal circulation resistance training. 5 male, 5 female would train with the hybrid that I was talking about, blood flow restriction and regular resistance training, because there has been research suggesting that that could be more useful than just one or the other. And then the remainder of the subjects, I know this sounds corny, but the remainder of the subjects would just refrain from any muscular resistance training. That way I do have a group of people just not doing anything. So I've got a lot of different, variability in my data. So in this instance, groups A through D were named accordingly. And I've listed it there. A was just BFR, B, RT. C was the BFR plus regular resistance training, and D was the inactive control. This is an 8 weeks thing. We're going to use barbell curls and squats because you can restrict blood flow to both the biceps and the quads and hamstrings. So pretty much you're testing to establish a 1 rep max, and all 4 groups will be conducted prior to training beginning. And then beginning of week 2, beginning of week 4, beginning of week 6, and then at the conclusion of week 8, measuring strength throughout the entire group. Oh, and 3 days per week, at least 4 sets of 3 to 6 reps of what your exercise is, and appropriate levels of your 1 rep max. So if you're training with blood flow restriction, training 20% of your 1 rep max, the other side somewhere between 75 and 93%. Hopefully everybody holding around the 85% margin. Okay, a lot of chart. I know it's tough to see. Ultimately what you're looking at is group A, just blood flow restriction training. We're looking at about a 10% increase per 2-week period. With just regular restriction training, you're looking at a 5%. Group C wins out with about a 15% increase in everybody's lifts. And then Group D, of course, there was no change. So a lot of writing, and I'm not going to just read it to you, but pretty much everything found that blood flow restriction training can in fact stimulate muscular hypertrophy. I said it would come back up, muscular hypertrophy and strength to the same degree of high intensity resistance training. It's been used aesthetically, as well as there have been athletic researches done on it. It was specifically used in rugby, which aligns with everything that we've seen thus far. Successes are typically seen through protocols requiring the client to lift around 20% of a pre-established 1 rep maximum. And then there's also been research done that said if you exceed 30%, because you'll see the guys in the gym, they're lifting their same weight, and after 30%, pretty much the only thing you're increasing is the discomfort level, which doesn't really transfer into results ever. There's actually been a study done that observed not only the contrast of blood flow restriction to high intensity resistance training, but also a combination of the two. That's what I mentioned earlier, is it actually turns out combining lifting methods, don't put all your eggs in one basket. You combine the methods, you could have just substantial results. Future research. Of course, you want to investigate the effects of low intensity blood flow restriction training to help the elderly population. What we've established already is that this is a way to lift 20% of your 1 rep max and get the same workout that you got with 75 to 93% of your 1 rep max with standard resistance training. So in a population where bone deterioration is a thing, I don't know how this hasn't blown up exponentially. I'm sure that there's considerations. Blood flow equals certain clotting equals certain, this is one of those things, but it's really not much more dangerous than taking a blood pressure. It's the same tear down of the muscles that you would have under regular resistance training. So I think there's definitely a market for this in the elderly. I also think that there's definitely a market for this as far as like injured vets and such like that, or just rehabilitative exercise anyway. But that was pretty much it. That's occlusion training in a brief nutshell. I hope I didn't take up too much time. It looks like we're looking at 9:45. So not bad. It was a fun class, guys, and I'll talk to you later. Thank you.